Hank here, back at it with another video. We will be addressing some news today. The Giants have signed center Matt Skura to the practice squad, but before I dive into that, I'd like to give you guys a reminder. Please give us a follow on our social media. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Blue Avenue. And of course, in addition, please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We produced a video of Sam, Tom, and I. We all broke down our analysis of the 3-man roster. That was a really fun discussion, and I can't wait to have more discussions with them in the future. But first and foremost, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, and that is Matt Skura. So the Giants, as we know, have had the offensive line has obviously been a big topic of discussion for Giants fans. There's a lot of people that think they didn't really do enough or that they could have done better addressing. Well, looking at what the Giants have done over the past few weeks, it seems to me that Dave Gettleman's really been trying hard to address this group, and I think he signed a pretty good depth piece today. Matt Skura, so let's give a little bit of background on him. So coming out of the draft, he was an undrafted free agent. He came from Duke University, where a guy you might know by the name of Daniel Jones also played. He started some games there, and they were teammates right at the end of his time there, and he was signed by the Ravens in 2016. He started out actually as a member of the practice squad, but once Marshall Yanda was injured, he ended up playing 12 games at right guard in 2017, and eventually he would start 51 games at center for the Baltimore Ravens. He actually had a consecutive game streak of 29 games before he unfortunately suffered a devastating knee injury in the middle of the 2019 season, and the injury really couldn't have come at a worse time for Skura, because at that point he was getting a lot of votes for the Pro Bowl, and he was ranked the 22nd best starter in terms of Pro Football Focus, and he was graded 63.9. So he was putting up good numbers, and it was definitely the best year of his short career. But then things really took a turn for the worse. He started the first 9 games following his injury in the 2020 season, but unfortunately, he had a series of bad snaps, and this was during a loss to the New England Patriots. And as a result, he ended up getting benched for the remainder of the season. But fortunately for him, the Miami Dolphins were able to pick him up as a free agent. And obviously, they took him with the intention of replacing Ted Karras, who they let walk back to the New England Patriots. But their draft pick, Liam Eichenberg, had a strong preseason, and because he was unable to beat out Michael Dieter for the starting center job, that, of course, made him expendable. So the Miami Dolphins ended up cutting him, and he did not make the 53-man roster. So then, of course, here comes the Giants. Now, Shane Lemieux, as we know, came down with a torn patella injury, and while I think he's trying to play for it, it seems to me the Giants really do not want to take chances. And Dave Gettleman really did a good job shoring up the interior part of the offensive line. He traded for Billy Price from the Cincinnati Bengals, and he also got Ben Bredeson from the Baltimore Ravens, who, as you kind of know, is a former teammate of Matt Skura. So the Giants are definitely deeper, and I'm already feeling a little bit better about their offensive line situation than I was probably about maybe a month or two ago. So I think they did a good job there. And as for Matt Skura, I think this is a really solid depth signing, because when you look at his numbers, despite the fact that he had trouble with his snaps at the end of his time with the Baltimore Ravens, I think that Matt Skura is going to help the Giants, because look at his numbers in 2020. He only allowed 1 sack in 661 snaps played. This is stats that I also got from Pro Football Focus. So when you really look at the whole thing, I think this is a good depth signing, because, as I said, offensive line was an area that was very much in question before the season and even after the draft. And when you look at the offensive line now, you got Andrew Thomas at your left tackle. You got Shane Lemieux projected to be starting at left guard, but then again, Ben Bredeson might get a start too, because we really don't know about Shane Lemieux's health status as we speak. But then you got Nick Gates at center, Will Hernandez at right guard, and Matt Peart. So really a lot of options for the Giants. So I think it definitely helps the sign, because let's say one of these names that I just mentioned gets hurt, then you have somebody. You can bring him back from the practice squad, and you can sign him in case of an emergency. And as I said, with Shane Lemieux's injury, maybe you insert him into the left guard position, because as I see it, Nick Gates, starting at the offensive line with Nick Gates at center, I don't think he's going to lose that job. Nick Gates did a great job last year, and unless we find he has some problems this year, I think he's probably going to stay at that position. But then again, if say he does have problems, you might as well give Skura another try at that position. I mean, maybe he can improve his snaps, and we'll see. And Gates is pretty versatile too. So on the surface, I think the offensive line is definitely an area that I think has gotten better for the Giants. And Dave Gettleman really didn't need to go out and sign a big name. I mean, he lucked out with Miami having not had enough room for Matt Skura on their roster. And considering you're getting someone who's had experience and he has proven to protect his quarterbacks, I honestly think this could really help them. I think maybe it'll help the run game, and maybe it'll help Daniel Jones and protect him in the pocket. So there's really nothing wrong I can say about this move other than the fact that it gives the Giants depth. And I'm really intrigued to see how this offensive line as a whole does. I think really the two names of concern on the offensive line really as we get into the season, Will Hernandez, who I believe is the longest tenured member of this offensive line. He had moments last year where he lost his starting job. So I think this year is really a prove-it season for Will Hernandez. And then, of course, you have Andrew Thomas, who last year got off to a rough start, but in the second half of the season, he did a really amazing job. He went, I believe, at least 5 or 6 games. He didn't allow a quarterback sack. So I think this year he's going to have a really good breakout season. I think those two will be fine. So I'm really not as worried about the offensive line as I was in months past. I think they'll be a good group for the Giants. And whether Matt Skura ends up making the main roster over the course of the season remains to be seen. But it's good to know that the Giants have a good safety net and security blanket if, God forbid, any one of those names gets hurt or if the Giants are put in an emergency situation. But that's really about all I have discussed with the Giants today. Once again, like to give you guys a reminder, give us a follow on our Instagram and our Twitter at Big Blue Avenue. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue. I, like all of you guys, cannot wait for the start of the regular season. And I can't wait to make more videos collaborating with Tom and Sam, and as we are ready to share our opinions about the New York Giants. So until next time I make a video, this is Hank and Dichter, and I will see you guys later.